Hey, everybody. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. It's nice to see you all. Um, got some information to share with you tonight that I think is pretty important. I'm not going to mince words or anything here, and I'm just going to jump straight to the chase. I have posted this in my post section. If you want to go and save your own copy of this, I've had it confirmed to me through multiple sources that this is a genuine letter that's been sent out by the Postal Service, the United States Postal Service, which is a federal entity, and we're going to read it here for those of you uh, that are on cell phone that can't read it. It says here January 5th, which is 3 days ago, 2025, or this is 2026. I'm sorry, 2026. I'm sorry. Officers, says subject, Postal Service employee continue to provide essential services. All right. One, it says background. During large scale emergencies, epidemics, hurricanes, civil unrest, etc., states and localities may issue curfew orders or other directives restricting travel and other commercial and personal activities. Many of these orders will explicitly exempt providers of essential services, but some do not. Even if a state or local action does not contain such an exemption, the Postal Service is the Postal Service's operations. Sorry, it's just the letters are a little blurry, even at the size that I'm reading this as. The Postal Service's operations are governed by federal law. Therefore, we continue to fulfill our public service mission by accepting and delivering mail and packages in accordance with federal law. Although postal employees are essential workers that may be exempt from state and local directives, any decision by the Postal Service to continue operations during an emergency must ensure operations can be conducted in a manner that protects the safety of our employees and the public. The Postal Service will continue working closely with federal, state, and local authorities to ensure that we are safely carrying out our mission during emergencies. Number two, employees and contractors should carry the essential services letter. And haven't we heard this before? All right. Haven't we heard this before? With them as they perform duties for the Postal Service and travel to and from work. So let me see your papers, sir. Let me see your papers, is what that sounds like to me. Because state and local government restrictions do not apply to prevent Postal Service employees from reporting to and performing their work, all employees and contractors must be provided with a copy of essential services letter attached to this memorandum in an effort to assist employees who may be stopped and questioned by local law enforcement about their activities as a result of a state or local legal directive restricting commercial or personal activities. The Postal Service is providing employees with this letter explaining the essential nature of Postal Service employees and contractors. This letter, in addition to the employees or contractors' postal identification ID badge, should resolve any questions raised by state or local law enforcement officials. It is critical that all employees and contractors carry their postal ID badge with them at all times. That's kind of interesting right there. If encountered or stopped by state or local law enforcement officials enforcing travel restrictions, the postal employee or contractor should identify themselves as a Postal Service employee, show the official their post show the official their postal issued ID badge, show the official their postal ID badge, and provide a copy of the letter with this information to the official. The state or local official should allow employees and contractors to continue their travel or work. However, if the employees and contractors run into any issues, they should contact their supervisor or manager. Questions regarding this process should be elevated to your area or headquarters law office. Doug A. Tolino. So this was released on January 5th, 2026. That was 3 days ago. All right. So uh, this isn't good. This reminds me of the same things that were released creeping up to the lockdown pandemic in 2020. All right. So, all right, we're not going to speculate as to what Russia may have done or anything like that. We'll look into it, but we're not gonna. We're just dealing with facts here. So I'm looking at a couple of different angles here with what's happening. Okay, first off, for a letter, all right, for a letter like this to be sent out, local law enforcement and things like that have to, in my opinion, would have to be aware that this kind of stuff is being sent out because they're telling you what you need to do and how you need to present this to an official. Okay. And so, and I'm going to ask people in the live chat, we're not talking about other news. I'm focusing here on other things. I could, I just need to focus on what I'm focusing on because I'm autistic. It's very hard to stay on track. And when I see side stuff popping up, it distracts me. Okay. So there's a couple of different things that could be brewing right now with this situation. One could be what we've been talking about on this channel for quite some time. Okay. And that is a pandemic lockdown. All right. We do know that things are popping off with elevated sickness levels, and there's some articles that I can share with you on that. But just even Googling it, all right. I mean, it says right here Ohio's bad flu season to get worse as super flu spreads, state warns. Super flu variant spreads as flu cases surge across New York. Already severe flu season is overwhelming hospitals and ERs. And I mean, we could just click on this one and you see, there's a whole article on that. Super flu to blame for rough influenza season in Ohio. I don't know why it's popping up news about Ohio, but it's what's popping up. Michigan, a pretty sick state amid surge of super flu COVID cases. That's interesting. Why flu seems to be everywhere, even if super flu is not a thing. Okay. What's subclade K? Why new super flu can make you feel off? I mean, if you're sick, you feel awful. That's pretty apparent. Super flu variant drives sharp spike in Summit County flu cases. So I mean, on and on. There's all these articles. You can even click on view full coverage, and super scary Bay Area has second highest flu levels in California. I mean, just on and on. 30 states are in CDC's worst tier for flu as super variant spreads. And as a channel, this is where we've kind of seen things going. And I know that absolutely, Miss Mercy Morgan, the pediatric cases are starting to really rise when it comes to pediatric deaths and things like that. I think that at one point there was 9, and then they're saying that there's 5 new ones. And so something that I've noticed when it comes to the sickness stuff, because I've been paying attention to it for a long time, for multiple years, anything that happens in China, it's about a month or two before it finally hits the US. Okay. All right. And so I think whenever we see things happening in China, that's what we can expect to happen globally. It's hold on one second. All right, what you see in China is usually a precursor to what's happening, and eventually that's what you'll see in your country probably a month later. All right, they're usually ahead because they're the ones usually releasing this crap. Okay, And I've watched this thing, this K flu, super flu, H3N2, which, by the way, is technically a bird flu. They're not calling it bird flu, but it technically is an avian flu. Okay. And they're saying that that this is not even close to the peak of what it's going to be. And remember, the last time they locked us down, it was in March, around March 10th or 11th or 12th in 2020 when they locked us down. So if there is going to be a lockdown because of this, there's quite a ways to go, but it seems to be accelerating fast. There was a video. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it here. I don't know. Okay, yeah, there's a video, and this is Pastor JD Farag. And this was from the Alex Jones show, and I found this on X when I was over there, and I'm just going to show the beginning of this thing. I'm not going to go too deep. I'll stop it pretty quickly, but listen to what and some of you that watch JD Farag, you probably already know this, but there's other people that might not. And he comes out with this prediction that was predicted 30 years ago. And I want you to pay close attention when he talks about fast mutating viruses. Listen to this.
This was predicted 27 years ago. Somebody knew something. Okay, here's the list. This is an abbreviated list. I could have made it much longer. You know I can. I didn't. Okay, you ready for the list? Fast mutating viral disease pandemics. Genetically developed vaccines. DNA database tracking. DNA chips. Get this one. 1997. Gene-based pharmaceuticals. Transmitting genetic instructions for a disease process. How about this one? You ready for it? Wait for it. Artificial intelligence to determine gene patterns. 27 years ago, who had heard about AI? Apparently they had. How about this one? Robots for doing genome sequencing. And then, this one blew me away. Using recombinant DNA for making spike proteins. 1997? It gets even worse. Smart homes. They have a whole chapter on smart homes / smart cities. This one will absolutely floor you. It did me. In 1997, and this is, you can do the word search and research yourself. They predicted, not 2025, but by 2020, that people would be working from home virtually. Oh, come on. Nuclear devices causing widespread contamination. Nanotech devices. This stuff was never even heard of. Digital currency. And last but certainly not least, vaccination programs. I'm sorry, I got to chuckle, because if I don't, I'll cry. Vaccination programs run by organizations like the World Health Organization for a global killer that has yet to emerge. First printing, February 1997.
So I'm not going to go too deep into that because I don't want to get like hit for anything, but there is a point where he does talk about fast mutating viruses that like adapt quickly. And I think that's exactly what this subclade K is doing now. All right, setting aside sickness. Well, actually, I want to just quickly say, they predicted that there would be a pandemic in 2025 to 2026, 2027 into 2028. And this is set for the fall of 2025 when it begins. And I'm just giving a rough gist of this here. I'm not going too deep into it. But you can go download this yourself and read it for yourself. The same people that brought you Event 201, that was the COVID-19 pandemic, Johns Hopkins, are bringing you this one. You know, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, all part of this kind of stuff, okay? And in this, they talk about how basically Christians that are anti-jabby go to Asia, it's always from Asia, and bring back this St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome. Okay, and they're Baptists in this. They're very clear. It's Christians. They want Christians to be the problem. Okay, and then in this, they're talking about how Thanksgiving and Black Friday spread this disease that has flu-like symptoms. And then later on this page, they talk about Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving and holiday and Black Friday again, but that they go on to say, we'll just read this here. There was widespread concern in public health circles that travel over the Christmas and New Year's birthdays would spark a global pandemic. And so we're just coming out of that season where everybody gathered for Christmas and everybody gathered for New Year's and all this different stuff. Okay. And I find it interesting that they're doing that. You know, this is where we're at here. Okay. And then now the Postal Service is getting a letter stating to be ready for travel restrictions. And this is basically like for exempt employees that are essential workers. And this is for January 5th, 2026, released 3 days ago, where they're saying to that they're talking about during large scale emergencies, epidemics, hurricanes, and civil unrest. Now, I've heard 1,000 million times, which isn't even a number, but 1,000 million times, okay, people say that they're not going to comply this next time around. That can be your civil unrest or whatever. But remember the George Floyd riots, and remember tensions were so high and all this stuff. Now, there was just this event that took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where, and I've seen all the footage, not just the footage they want you to see. All right. There's multiple angles of this event happening. One of the angles comes from, I believe it's a Ring doorbell camera that catches the other angle, but the angle that they want the public to see is a very difficult angle, all right, to see what's actually happening. But what's happens is that there's a woman that's evading ICE agents. She tries to take off, and there people are stating that she was, wasn't trying to ram police, but she was. Absolutely, she was. When you see all the evidence, not just what they want you to see in the mainstream. All right. And what happened is she got shot in the face a couple of times. Tragically. It's all tragic. It's just, we live in a fallen creation, a fallen world. And it breaks my heart to see that anybody, whether law enforcement or citizens, no matter who they are, whether they're legal or illegal, lose their lives or be in danger over any situation. It just shouldn't happen. Okay, that's my thought on it right off the bat. But seeing the other angle from the doorbell camera is what I'm pretty sure it was, because it was pretty low quality. You actually see her hit him, and what happened is that she lost traction with her tires. And then what happened is if she wouldn't have lost traction with her tires, she would have ran him over. She was gunning for it, but she lost traction, and so anyways, he ended up on the hood, and put a shot through the windshield and hit her in the face. And so, but Minneapolis is absolutely up in arms, and I'm starting to wonder if, like, and I'm not against the law. What I am saying is I'm wondering if they're being told to just let her fly. You know what I mean? That, like, they're creating the chaos. It's all about problem, reaction, solution. All right. Interesting artist Wendy. Portland shooting today too, involving Border Patrol agents as well. Seems to be gearing up to civil unrest for a lockdown. And it could be from whatever's happening right now. Okay. It could be from whatever's happening right now. All right, that with the shootings that are taking place between law enforcement and citizens, or even illegals, it doesn't matter. A life is a life, in my opinion. It really sucks when life is lost because of people's emotions and quick actions to do crazy things. You put yourself in a bad situation, people react. It's what happens. But anyways, so this could definitely spark civil unrest, but it's one of those situations where, like, when we look at this letter, they're saying the first thing right off the bat is epidemics. civil unrest is last. It's like why all of a sudden hurricanes too? That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. I do know these like polar vortexes. They're basically like land hurricanes, like these different Arctic blasts and stuff that have been happening. Like you can just sit there and watch them rotate. Like it's like it's right out of the movie The Day After Tomorrow. But yeah, they released this letter January 5th, 2026 to postal workers. I've had it confirmed to me that this is an accurate letter, and I know someone who their husband has received this letter at work. And so this is a real letter, and you know, it's indicative that something is brewing that they're not telling the public. And I'm going to lean myself towards the epidemic scenario, especially because that's the first one mentioned in this list. Epidemics, hurricanes, or civil unrest, and the civil unrest could be because of lockdowns. All right, but you know, I've already read the letter, and if you want to, I don't know if you can read it or not if you're on a cell phone, but you could rewind the video and actually hear me read the letter to you. I'm not going to read it again, but it just seems to me that something big is brewing. And you know, I showed you, I can show again how you could even just Google super flu, and I mean, just the amount of information that's just getting out of hand um, is pretty intense. Just tons and tons of news. Florida sees rise in super flu. Super flu hits highest levels in the U.S. in 25 years. And I can vouch and say, at least for the numbers, when it comes to numbers for Michigan, all right, I've looked at the Michigan numbers, the disease detecting numbers that they put out. They have like a report. They go week by week by week, but it's always a week behind what's actually happening. We're at like almost, actually, it's not almost, we're 5 times the sick numbers that were happening during the first pandemic. So we're like, even at we're technically in week 53, but with the information we have is for week 52, but we're 5 times the numbers of what it was during the 2020 COVID lockdown for flu-like symptoms, or you know, flu-like disease or flu-like sickness or whatever is what it covers. And I could even show you the document, but I've shown it in past lives. Just look for one of my lives. I talk about the sickness or whatever. You can just, you know, click through it and you can see. But it's pretty intense, if you ask me, that this is all going on, especially in light, you know, of the SPARS pandemic scenario that they released, and we know that they want to get us to that Agenda 2030. Now, I'm not saying it can't be because of the situation that's unfolding in Minneapolis and I guess Portland now. But it's not about, and I've talked about this before, it is not about how they go about getting us to the end game. It is about the end game itself. And the end game is Agenda 2030. And they say by the year 2030, they're going to have all these different things that they've been telling us they're going to do implemented by the year 2030. Okay? And this ends in 2028. So that would definitely count for by the year 2030. And so, but if there's another lockdown from a pandemic, you're going to have the 15-minute cities and all that stuff. There was a movie that me and my wife just watched the other day, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was the new Stranger Things TV show. Let's talk about that for a moment. All right. And if you have like a spoiler problem or whatever, and you don't want to hear, and you're planning on watching it, you know, I mean, probably just, I guess, turn this off. But I'm not going to give like any details how the ending is or anything like that. But the way the show starts off, Stranger Things starts off, the whole entire town's on lockdown, and the military has surrounded it. And I've shown in past lives how that they have that South Park, you know, the COVID South Park that they did, where they talked about, you know, or they didn't talk about it. They surrounded South Park with an army and a fence line, and anybody who tried to get close to that fence line got sniped, they got shot. And so in this one, in Stranger Things, you know, they've quarantined. That's literally the word, quarantined. What's the place called where that's in Stranger Things? The Hawkins. I think it's Hawkins or whatever. So it yeah, Stranger Things was inspired by the Montauk Project, absolutely. But so my point is that it was that they're giving you predictive programming, and it's the most popular show right now out there. Like when they put that sort of stuff in there, they want the masses to see that. And just like The Last of Us, I don't know if you guys remember that apocalyptic TV show, The Last of Us. Don't watch episode 3, my God. But my point is in that they had walled in cities, Divergent, Allegiant, Insurgent, walled in cities, Hunger Games, walled in cities. They're projecting what they're going to do. And so it's not about how they do it, it's about the end game. And it is 15-minute cities, digital IDs, AI data centers up the arse. I mean, they are going for this thing. All right. And, you know, I'm working on some information that actually I've been finding out in working on a teaching where I'm going to be going into like Mystery Babylon stuff, things like that. And I've come into some really interesting information pertaining to that subject, and I'm just not ready to release it yet. I've actually been working on it most of the day today, and it's quite the process to go through. But okay, my point is, uh, the people that I know that are sick, okay, are intensely sick, and they're not getting any better. Like I'm talking over 2 weeks, still sick. I got a buddy, he makes hot sauce out in California. Actually, his company's called the Notorious Sauce, and he's got like the best hot sauce. And he's been really struggling right now because he's been so sick. And he's like, he told me, he's like, dude, I feel like I've lost like 30% of my lung function. And everybody that I know that's been sick, even my friend Tanya Reinhardt, she said this stuff keeps coming back. It like, if you don't get it taken care of properly and like actually, you know, go to the doctor and get something for it, okay, or I'll just say this, and I got to break this up. That I'm trying to pronounce the name properly here, but that it's called Oscillococcinum, Oscillococcinum, and I'm not going to tell you what to do with that, but I would run with that. Oscillococcinum, Oscillococcinum, and I would run with that if I were you. All right, and you know what I'm trying to say by running with that. Okay, you got your C, you got your D3, you got the one that starts with Z and it's 4 letters Z. All right, you can have those as well, and I would run with those as well. They got silver. Okay, that's got to break this up and say a bunch of stuff to break this apart. That's colloidal. Okay, run with those things. Okay, and take care of yourself. Be smart. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face when you're in public. But chin diapers ain't gonna do nothing to stop nothing, and going and getting jabby ain't gonna do nothing either. All right, it's actually probably gonna make stuff worse. But so regardless of how they're doing this, it's about the end game. I tend to believe this is what it's going to be, but obviously something is brewing because they're telling us something's brewing, and the feds are taking care of the feds. Essential employees are being told to keep this letter, postal workers are being told to keep this letter in case law enforcement, local or state law enforcement stops them and questions them. That's literally, can I see your papers, sir? This is Nazi Germany level type of stuff here. The same thing during the first pandemic. My wife was an essential employee, and she had to have a paper. She literally kept it on her dashboard. You know what I mean? So this is pretty serious, if you ask me, because the last time this was sent out was in 2020. All right, now it's getting sent out again. All right, and so I think it's important that people pay attention and prepare yourselves for what's about to happen. I pray to God in the mighty name of Jesus, nothing happens. Okay, I really do. I pray I have egg on my face and I'm completely wrong about everything that I've stated, but I have been warning about this for about 2.5, 3 years because of the SPARS pandemic scenario. This was created in 2017, and I found out about it about 3 years ago, and it lines up with what's going on right now to a T, to a T. And what's also funny is that there's all this fog that's appearing. I mean, it can be fog, it could be frequency towers, whatever, stuff in a lab, China, whatever. I don't care how it's happening, but something's brewing. And either it's this or they're going to bring about civil unrest because of this fighting that's going on in America between citizens and the feds, particularly ICE and the FBI and things like that. So I don't know how it's coming about, but the government is notifying their workers now. All right. And that's pretty clear as day to me. That's pretty clear cut. All right. They're saying that, and I can read it again, but I read it in the beginning of the live. We'll just go ahead and read it again because there's some people that have a cell phone and they can't read it. So it says on January 5th, 2026, officers subject, all right, Postal Service employee continue to provide essential services. So they're literally telling you that a shutdown's coming. Why would they send this out? And I'm going to say this, okay? I'm going to say this, all right, that this is not, and I was talking to who was it? One of my brothers, I forget his name. Goodness gracious. But he was even saying he did some research and looked into this. This is not an annual thing that they're sending out. They sent this out in 2020, and now they're sending it out again on January 5th, 2026, 3 days, or now it's 4 days ago because it just passed midnight. So 4 days ago, they sent this out. All right. And they're saying that during large scale emergencies, so it's a large scale, it's not small scale. And they're saying epidemics, hurricanes, civil unrest, etc. All right. Epidemic can't be large scale because it's a specific area. Like an epidemic would be like New York City. It would be a smaller size pandemic. A pandemic would be, obviously like a countrywide thing. An epidemic is on a smaller scale. So how can an epidemic be large scale? That's called a Freudian slip right there. All right. I always teach people how to read this stuff, and that is a Freudian slip. They're telling you that there's a large scale something coming. All right. Like an epidemic, hurricane, civil unrest. We'll even say pandemic. It says states and localities may issue curfew orders or other directives restricting travel and other commercial. It says they may issue. So it means they're planning on issuing something. They're talking about issuing something. All right. Or other directives restricting travel and other commercial and personal activities. Many of these orders will explicitly exempt providers of essential services, but some do not. Even if a state or local action does not contain such an exemption, the Postal Service's operations are governed by federal law. Therefore, we continue to fulfill our public service mission by accepting and delivering mail and packages in accordance with federal law, although postal employees are essential workers that may be exempt from state and local directives. Any decision by the Postal Service to continue operations during an emergency must ensure operations can be conducted in a manner that protects the safety of our employees and the public. The Postal Services will continue working closely with federal, state, and local authorities to ensure that we are safely carrying out our mission during emergencies. Number 2, employees and contractors should carry the essential services letter with them as they perform duties for the Postal Service and travel to and from work. Because state and local government restrictions do not apply to prevent Postal Service employees from reporting to and performing their work. All employees and contractors must be provided with a copy of the essential services letter attached to this memorandum in an effort to assist employees who may be stopped and questioned by local law enforcement about their activities as a result of a state or local legal directive restricting commercial or personal activities. So they're literally saying, like, even commercial stuff, like this is a legal directive to put things on lockdown. They're talking about a lockdown. They're not using the term lockdown, but the legal terminology they're using is saying a lockdown. I mean, this is it right here. In an effort to assist employees who may be stopped and questioned by local law enforcement about their activities as a result of a state or local legal directive restricting commercial or personal activities. That's a lockdown. That statement right there, that sentence right there, that's a lockdown. I'll read it again. All right. In an effort to assist employees who may be stopped and questioned by local law enforcement about their activities as a result of a state or local legal directive restricting commercial or personal activities, the Postal Service is providing employees with this letter explaining the essential natures. So they're telling you something's coming. This isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They're saying something's coming. It's very clear cut, in my opinion, what they're putting in this letter. All right, the essential nature of Postal Service employees and contractors. All right, because they obviously hire some people to come in and help deliver packages when they get behind and things like that. This letter, in addition to the employees or contractors' postal identification ID badge, should resolve any questions raised by state or local law enforcement officials. So that means that the local law enforcement and officials are aware of this because they're sending this out already and already preparing their workers for what's about to happen. Okay? And this could be 2 months down the road. That doesn't mean that it's happening right now, but that they're sending it out. There's a plan. The thing is, okay, is that when it comes down to this type of stuff being sent out, this wasn't sent out at all between 2020 and now. All right, it was just during the 2020 pandemic and then now, because anybody who was an essential worker got something similar to this back then. Okay, it says right here, it is critical that all employees and contractors carry the postal ID badge with them at all times. That means you're going home to work. That means you're going to work while you're at work. They're telling you to carry your postal ID badge if you work for the post office. It says, if encouraged or stopped by state or local law enforcement officials enforcing travel restrictions, that's a lockdown. See, in the beginning of this, in the background, they're not telling you that it's a lockdown. But now you get into part two, and in the second paragraph, part two, then they start telling you basically in so many words that it's a lockdown. All right. So it says the postal employer contractor should identify themselves as a Postal Service employee, show the official their postal issued ID badge, and provide a copy of the letter with this information to the official. The state or local official should allow employees and contractors to continue their travel or work. It's because they know it's coming. And there's all these, like, one thing I will say about this sort of stuff, like people who are federal workers and law enforcement, things like that, there's non-disclosure agreements that you have to sign and things like that. Like whoever put this out, put themselves out on the line to be able to bring you this information. And then I had confirmation from someone, all right, telling me that their husband had gotten this as well. So this is a real letter. This isn't some fictitious crap that's been made up to scare everybody. And nobody should be scared anyways, especially if you have Jesus. But the reality is that something is brewing and happening right now. And I can't tell you if it's sickness, which I think it is, or whether it's civil unrest from like your Antifa folk and things like that, getting all uppity about, what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But I think nonetheless, this should be paid attention to, and all of you need to start preparing yourselves. And I've already given you information on how to prepare yourselves. Okay, what the best thing is to do is if it's a sickness scenario, which I believe it is, because I mean you can just look at hold on one second. You can just look at this, and I mean you just start scrolling, and it's just super flu cases surge, causing an unprecedented spike in flu cases. 30 states are in CDC's worst tier for flu as super variant spreads. Everything you need to know about the super flu. Map shows states in worst tier as super flu spreads. Florida sees rise in super flu. Super flu hits highest levels in U.S. in 25 years. Okay. So this is, and again, I can even confirm that the numbers that I've seen, that I've reported on, all right, are way bigger than 2020. All right. A super flu is spiking in the US and hitting kids the hardest. All right. And I was talking to you, how long ago do you guys remember, those of you that actually watch this channel? I was talking about how my brother Clayton Joseph in Brazil translated a prophetic word from a woman that was talking about how the kids were going to get sick. That like whatever they were going to do next had to deal with the kids. And now it's like, it's about the kids. Find it interesting. And I think that, in my opinion, all right, they either release something and it's bad, and then they release something else to get it worse, or this thing is mutating quickly. It's one or the other, because people that I know that are actually sick feel like they're dying. They can't breathe. They're drowning in their own phlegm. All this different stuff. Like it's rough. And this is the stuff that was happening in China. All right. And let me see if I can find something real quick. Just give me a moment here. I got to look this up. Hold on. Just give me a moment. Hold on. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and show this right here. Give me a moment. And if you have not subscribed to Decoding China, I would do so, because they're really good at giving you the up-to-date information as to what's happening with China. It's not just Iran that's falling apart right now. China's falling apart. Like, there is big moves being played. What happened in Venezuela, like they're building the 10 kingdoms. Like it was like a live or two ago where I just went through and undid the whole entire thing where, they're and I laid it out how they're building the 10 kingdoms right now. They're moving fast with it. But for right now, I want you to see how they're talking about this epidemic that's sweeping across China.
Urgent. An epidemic sweeps across China. Mass deaths without distinction between young and old. Hospitals overwhelmed, funeral homes packed, and a rising number of sudden deaths among both the elderly and the young. China is facing a new and troubling wave of disease, one that is spreading largely beneath the surface as official information remains vague and fragmented. A new wave of disease is quietly but steadily sweeping across multiple regions of China, placing severe strain on hospitals, funeral services, and local communities. Reports emerging from social media, funeral industry workers, and ordinary citizens point to a pattern that is increasingly difficult to ignore: rising mortality among the elderly, a noticeable increase in sudden deaths among younger people, and a widening gap between official narratives and lived reality. Across many cities, hospitals have been operating under prolonged overload. Community clinics are crowded, inpatient beds are scarce, and medical staff face sustained pressure. At the same time, funeral homes in several provinces have once again become
And that's a multi-tiered hospital right there.
overwhelmed, with long queues of families waiting to handle burial and cremation arrangements. In some cities, traffic jams have formed outside funeral facilities, while elsewhere, authorities have accelerated the construction or expansion of funeral homes.
And so what I'm trying to tell you is everything that happens in China, is always about a month or two ahead of what's going to happen in the U.S. And I've been trying to tell everybody that this is coming. And while everybody's being lied to by other people and being given this and given that, and I'm going to say it, false hope, Okay, and it's not that Jesus is the false hope, and it's not that he's not coming. I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture 100%, but no one's been paying attention to what actually is going on, and they're getting all this fluff from everywhere else. These people that are the channels are just booming. There's no censorship at all. But while I'm sitting here screaming from the rooftops, get ready, and be in prayer and be focusing on Jesus right now, and do what you need to do to take care of your body and your family and your health and your family's health, and instead people, are hyper focused on, this and that's leading them nowhere at this time. I want to help get people to the finish line. That's my goal, is to get people to the finish line. All right. And the finish line is the rapture for us pre-trib, Jesus believing Christians, that are the bride of Christ, if you will. But this thing, something's brewing, and I'm concerned about it. I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I've been preparing and taking the time, like, doing what I need to do to keep my health in order and whatnot. So, but I want to stress to people that, to take the precautionary measures and I've already gone over those in the video. And if you want to email me, I'm willing to take the time out of my day to share an email. You know what I mean? I've shared my email, and you can email me, and I'm willing to share the information I have with what you can do to take care of yourself. It's rather simple. It's not difficult. There's just like 5 or 6 items that will help you. You know what I mean? To be ready for what's happening, and to have your immune system boosted and all that stuff, and ready for what's brewing. But I mean, it could be because of, jabby that people are dropping dead, whatever. Like I've told you before, they'll use, and just like before, they used whatever they could to make it happen. It's not about what they're doing to make it happen. It's about them making it happen. It's not about the method. It's about the end game. And I believe this is fastly leading us to what it's going to take to be able to make Agenda 2030 a reality. I mean, I could show you clip after clip, right here, Bill Gates saying this.
So we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is, will get attention this time. So
probably because about what they plan to do. And the thing that's funny is the CDC played this down so hard in the beginning stages of this thing. I can attest to that. I watched it happen. They played this down so hard. And when it comes to Kimmy and Carol and your family thinking you're crazy, you're not the only ones. Trust me. I got a friend in California trying to tell his own family he's literally facing persecution in his own household because he's trying to warn people what's brewing, and like literally getting made fun of for it. So this is a season that we're in. People are deceived and they're scared. They're scared. They're not leaning upon Jesus. If you're leaning upon Jesus, there's nothing to fear. All right. But if you're in your own head and you're focusing on you and not focusing on Jesus, fear can take root. And that isn't of God. All right. The fear of the Lord is different than fear. Okay. And so if you're fearful, give it to Jesus, put it at the foot of the cross, and trust in him that he is going to protect you. Psalms 91. Pray Psalms 91 every single day, multiple times a day, and pray over your family, pray over your household, anoint your household with oil, and be in your prayer closet, be in your happy place in the Word of God with Jesus, because if you are, nothing's going to touch you. Nothing's going to touch you. Okay, God's given you promises in Psalms 91. All right, God's given you promises. Okay, and lean upon the promises of God. God is not a liar. All right, if you have faith, he is going to see that you're faithful, and he is going to reward it, and he will protect you, and he will watch over you, and he will keep you safe. But nonetheless, all right, I don't know exactly how they're going to get to the end game, but we know it's coming because they're literally showing us that it's coming by literally the feds sending out to their own people that something is brewing. All right. And so I am going to continue playing this. Hold on one second.
An unusual move that signals sharply rising demand. Hospitals overwhelmed, funeral homes packed, and a rising number of sudden deaths among both the elderly and the young. China is facing a new and troubling wave of disease, one that is spreading largely beneath the surface as official information remains vague and fragmented.
And it's the same thing in the US. All the information on it is vague and fragmented. They're not really giving us the true information because they want the spread. They need the spread. And I'm trying to sit here and go against the grain and say, hey, heads up, warning everybody, prepare yourselves. And are people going to listen to me? You know, half of you probably will, and I pray that you do. All right. But half of you probably won't. You probably won't take anything I'm saying seriously, and you'll go out and just keep living your life. But I'm trying to tell you something big is brewing here, and all of the evidence is beginning to mount up. All right. They have planned this out, and usually when they plan something out and they put money behind it and they have their exercises and their war game scenarios like this, you know, and not to mention, give me a moment here, because remember, we talked about how this is H3N2 is a form of bird flu. Remember, they had the bird flu summit 2 years ago in October in 2024. All right. And in this, the first part of it is mass fatality management planning. That's in the gray box. Topics include right up at the top, mass fatality management planning. And then the second is surveillance and data management. That's taking your freedoms away. All right. Then preparing community strategies, local partnership and participation. That means lockdown. All right. Delivery of vaccine and antiviral medication. What was the word? Equity. The new term that they're using for the vaccines is equity, which means they want to make it available to everybody. And I got to break this up here and throw a bunch of stuff in here and blah, 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 blah. It's about depopulation. That's what this is about. It's about bringing down the numbers and then sterilizing the rest so that way they can get things under control to get things ready for Agenda 2030. Let me get a drink here. Hold on. And so I think it's clear as day what's going on. You know, I don't know how else to warn people except to shoot it to you straight. Give me a moment here. I'll do this real quick. So right here, this is even just 2 days ago. All right, 5 more children dead from new superflu viruses. Doctors warn it leaves sufferers gasping for air. 5 children have died from a new strain of superflu, and this is on top of the 9 that had already died. So, and not to mention across the board, schools are closing down temporarily and doing remote learning. Okay, and there's mask mandates back in the hospitals, and there's even some hospitals that won't even allow visitors for patients anymore. Sound familiar? Does it all sound familiar? Is what I'm telling you and warning you about, does it sound familiar? It's literally goes hand in hand with what happened in 2020. And remember a while ago, we were showing you the parallels of 2024 and 2025 to 2020. There's all these different parallels leading up to this. It was almost like a repeat. Remember, there's no new thing under the sun. What happened before can happen again or will happen again. All right. And it seems that, and again, like TV shows like The Strain, TV shows or movies like The Fifth Wave talks about the bird flu taking out a bunch of people and leading up to this dystopian tyranny that, aliens bring in or whatever. But it's about how they're getting there rather than the end game. It's about how they're getting there. And then you have like the TV show like The Strain. It's about a parasite that causes people to be like undead or whatever. And it brings about a pandemic. The CDC is involved even in that show. And all these different like parallels to like the Beast and the Antichrist and the New World Order are all there. And then you got TV shows like The Stand, okay, where, you know, there's this disease called Captain Trips, a virus that with flu-like symptoms, okay, that brings about the collapse of society and the emergence of the Antichrist. All right, they're literally telling you what they're going to do, and people still won't believe it. We're not going to speculate rapture dates here on this channel. I will not allow it. I won't even allow people to speculate rapture years, because the reason I say this is, and I'm not trying to be mean here, I'm trying to be real with y'all. There were watchmen that said the rapture has to happen in 2025 or the math doesn't work. I'm just saying what they said. All right. I'm not going to say who, but there are people that literally stated to everybody, if the rapture doesn't happen in 2025, all right, that the math doesn't work anymore. Well, your math might not work, but God's math does. Okay. And the rapture can happen even today. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen at the end of 2026 or the beginning of 2027. I don't know, because I remember when I first joined YouTube, I was told the rapture has to happen in 2023. When I went from a street ministry to a digital ministry online like this, I was told the rapture has to happen in 2023. It's going to happen in 2023. And then they said it has to happen in 2024. All right. And they were for sure it has to happen. It's got to happen in 2024. I don't see it getting any further than 2025 came. And people said it has to happen. I can't believe it's not, happened yet. And people, I've literally had people that were Christians say, I'm going to have a talk with God because the rapture hasn't happened yet. It blew my mind. It blew my mind that people would be that haughty and proud that they think that they have a foothold into being able to accuse God of doing something wrong and not being in alignment with his plan that they don't even know. All right. And then now that they've said with the 2025 that it has to happen in 2025 or the math doesn't fit. And it breaks my heart that they keep doing this to people. It breaks my heart, but I won't allow that here. I don't care who gets mad at me. This channel's never been about fanfare. It's never been about being the most liked on YouTube. It's about the people who really want to learn, who really want the truth, who really want the warning way ahead of time. We are always ahead of the curve on this channel because I give you the receipts. I give you the white papers. I have read the documents, and I'm trying to warn people of what's to come rather than giving them false hope. But the true hope is that Jesus can come any day, and that's more peaceful and more enjoyable for me than anything out there. Okay, I find more encouragement in knowing, man, perhaps today could be that day. You know what I mean? And that's what encourages me. All right, and I don't know when it is, but I know time is very short. All right, they're working really fast on building the 10 kingdoms with the Don Roe doctrine and Venezuela getting taken over. And now he's talking about Colombia and Ecuador and all these different ones, he's building the 6th kingdom. He's building the 7th kingdom. He's helping build the 5th kingdom. And I mean, I'll even show you what I'm talking about here. Give me a moment. 1 second. I'll just show you the map here that I've been warning about this map for a long time. This is how they're going to restructure the earth after this major lockdown happens. This is Agenda 2030. This is Agenda 2030. This is what World War III and the lockdown can bring us to, is a complete restructuring of the planet. And Daniel talks about 10 horns that represent 10 kings. And 10 kings have to have 10 kingdoms. And then an 11th horn rises out of the midst of those 10 kings. And the 11th horn, the number 11, is always represented the Antichrist because he is the 11th horn, the little horn that rises up out of the midst of the 10 kings. All right. He subdues 3 of the horns, which I'm starting to lean towards he's going to subdue 7, 8, and 4. That's what I believe he's going to do. It's going to be 7, 8, and 4 that he's going to subdue. All right. He has to subdue 7 because I believe he's rising out of the Middle East. And I'm going to go into a teaching on this at a separate time, but I believe he's going to rise out of Syria. Daniel narrows that down very well. And in order to rise out of Syria, take power, he's going to have to overthrow the king that's already in Kingdom 7. So he's going to, of course, overthrow 7. He's going to overthrow 8 because it talks about how those 3 little horns are Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. Egypt, Libya are in Kingdom 7. Ethiopia is in Kingdom 8. All right, but there's more countries that are involved with this situation. The king of the south making war with the king of the north, the king of the north overthrowing the king of the south. All right, and so that's why I believe 7, 8, and 4 are those kings that he's going to overthrow. So, and then it becomes 7. You know what I'm saying? And then and so anyways, but this is where it's all headed right here. This is where it's all headed. And they've had these maps for a long time. Let me show you the original maps. All right, this is the original map. This is the one they first created right here. This is the one they first created right here. All right, that's the original map, but there's 14 nations, and it doesn't fit with biblical prophecy. All right, this is the original. And then they went from this to, hold on one second, I'm trying to bring up the next one here. Then they went from that to this. This is the Club of Rome map. All right, and then they updated it to this, which conscripted Mexico into Kingdom 1. That's the update. They went from this, which Mexico is part of Kingdom 6, and then they moved to this map here. And what's funny is, all right, I'm going to show you one more. All right, hold on one second here. I'm just going to remove this. Hold on, because I can only put up so many panels at once here. Then they changed it to this. That's what they're showing the public. That's what they want the public to believe. They want the public that Mexico is still Kingdom 6. It's not. Isn't it funny? This was the map that Doc Marquis had that he personally gave to me, okay, showing where it's all leading. So whatever's going on and happening, it's leading to that. That's the end game, the New World Order. All right, it'll be out of World War III that Antichrist arises. So the World War III is going to help bring about the 10 kingdoms. All right, and you see all that brewing now. You see all that brewing now, all across the board. You see, you know, like the whole, just for instance, the Venezuela. Venezuela is a part of Kingdom 6, and they were kind of a rogue nation working with Russia and all that stuff. And there's this backdoor deal that Russia and America cut with each other. America's like, have Ukraine, and Ukraine is a part of Kingdom 5, is a part of Russia. So they're both swapping nations to fit Kingdom 5 and Kingdom 6 and piece them together. Okay, but the reality is that Ukraine was always meant to be conscripted by Russia and Poland. Poland will leave the EU and become a part of Russia. Mark my words, it will. Doc Marquis called it years and years ago. I mean, it was back in like 2013, 2014 that me and him had that conversation, and he died in 2018. Okay, and even to this day, he warned me Poland and Ukraine will be absorbed by Russia, and that was before 2022, before the Russian-Ukraine war ever even happened. All right, and so the United States and Russia made a deal where they said, Russia said, you can have Venezuela, all right, and then America said, you can have Ukraine. So that's what's going on right now. They're building up the 10 kingdoms. All right, and they're using multiple different words to do it. Like and see with like Kingdom 7, for instance, he's got that. Donald Trump has that, and it's Donald Trump ain't the Antichrist. He's just doing the Antichrist work. He's at least a crony for him, okay, and at least unknowingly a crony, okay. But here's the thing: Kingdom 7, all right, has to be Iran falls to be a part of Kingdom 7, and look what's happening in Iran. Look what's happening in Iran right now. It's clear as day what's going on. And they're telling us there is a major event about to take place where they might not come out right out and say it, but in legalistic terms, they're telling you there's going to be a lockdown. This letter that they sent out 4 days ago, in January 5th, 2026, they're telling you there's going to be a lockdown, and that there's essential workers have to have this letter. They would not send out the letter unless they plan to make you need it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to go out here, okay? You can, and my wife was blown away by it, but I knew about 2 weeks before they were ever even going to call the lockdown. I said, they're getting ready to lock us down. I was telling my wife, I said, honey, Mrs. End Times Talk, they're getting ready to lock us down. She's like, yeah, right, blah, 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 yeah, right. And then all of a sudden, boom, they locked us down. And the same stuff they did then, they're doing again. The same stuff. Yeah, China's economy is collapsing. It's all collapsing. They're getting ready to bring up a digital currency. They're getting ready to build these 10 kingdoms. They're getting ready to implement a digital ID system with a social credit score that you're gonna have to step in line. All right. They're building up the 10 kingdoms. And all of this is leading to that. And it's a pandemic is perfect for it. It worked before and it'll work again, but they need to allow the sickness to spread. So they've been playing it down on purpose because they don't want people to be aware of what's happening. They want people to get sick. They want all of that. And it's not BRICS, Kimmy B. BRICS is just a part of things. It's just a part of things. That's all it is. It's just a part of things. It's a small piece of the puzzle. BRICS isn't the 10 kingdoms. It's not. BRICS and United Nations will go head to head, BRICS and NATO will go head to head. They'll clash, and that's going to be World War III. All right? That's what it'll be. I can almost guarantee it that that's how it's going to go down. And so there's going to be something that pops off between Russia and America, all right? Because Russia's BRICS and America's NATO. Like here, hold on, I'll show you. Let me find this image here. I'll show you real quick. And they say that The Economist has always been predictive programming. Okay. And what about, and I know it's not an oil tanker, but look at the barge with the shipping containers and this whole oil tanker thing that just happened. All right. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not trying to scare people or anything like that. I'm just throwing it out there. This whole thing with Donald Trump and Russia and all this stuff with these oil tankers that just got taken over. Look at the ship. Look at the ship right there. And it's aiming its firepower at America. And look at, you got the 250-year anniversary cake right there. And then you got all the missiles pointed up. And then you have this revolutionary fist. That fist has always been about revolution. All right? Like that fist has always been a symbol for revolution. It's in front of the American flag. The American flag represents patriotism. So there's this fight between patriotism and revolution. And we obviously see that brewing, especially with what just happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But then it's under cuffs, it's cuffed. That's a lockdown. They're telling you. And then you got the different characters in here. You got Vladimir Zelensky by the Viking ship and by the red tank off to the right. Just above the red tank is Vladimir Zelensky. And then you have, then you got Pam Bondi. And then that's obviously Kash Patel and Donald Trump. Okay. Then you have Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and some think it's Benjamin Netanyahu. Others think it's George Soros. I tend to lean towards George Soros. Looks more like Soros to me, but it could be either or. But all right, then you got two vaccines. You got one at the bottom, because there's missiles that are pointing down, and in between those two missiles at the bottom of this ball, all right, there's a vaccine, and then you got another vaccine off to the right. Then you got robot dogs. Then you got robots delivering packages by the vaccine at the very bottom. Then you got drones all the way around with lines attached to them. That means they're lowering down packages. That's symbolic of a lockdown, using technology to deliver packages because humans can't be outside to do it. All right. Then you got the brain. That's the Neuralink that's powering the gaming controller. And then you got all the different drugs. That's big pharma. Look at all the different pills everywhere. That's big pharma. And then you got an economic collapse. Look at the penny. They've even told us the penny's not a thing anymore. Look at the piece of paper with two swords over it right in the center. X marks the spot. It's economic collapse. They're showing us. Then you got all these dollar bills that are blue, little blue ones, all over a place. The red money sign is cracked. I mean, it's clear as day. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the World Cup. What it is it's a kickoff. This is the Economist cover for 2026. Okay, and I promise you, this is a kickoff. They're telling you this is going down in 2026. This is it. This is the big enchilada. This is the one. All right, and then we see this letter pop up. Now the feds are telling their own people to expect a lockdown and essential services and all this stuff and have this paper when law enforcement stops you. All right. So my point is that things are beginning to happen extremely fast. There's an acceleration taking place, and they're telling us right here the acceleration is going to take place. They're telling us the acceleration's happening. I mean, it's clear as day. I don't know how much more simple to make it. And I just hope people are listening. I really do. I hope people are listening. Let's stop living in fantasy land and listening to people that don't know what they're talking about or anything like that. Let's pay attention to what's actually happening and the evidence thereof, that like the powers that be want to tell you what they're going to do to you. That's what it's about. The powers that be want you to see what's going to happen to you, and your silence is your consent for them to go ahead with it. And this letter, man, this is the big enchilada, in my opinion. This is the big enchilada. This is what is really kicking this thing off and letting me know something's big is coming to America. Because the last time they sent these letters out, there was a lockdown. All right. I have seen Sam Tripoli before, but I don't subscribe to anything that, you know what I mean, that or I don't subscribe to his channel or anything like that. I really don't watch YouTube. I really don't. I don't get fed from YouTube. It's nothing that helps me to learn anything or grow. In fact, I actually see the majority of, not all of it, but the majority of YouTube is kind of almost disinformation, and especially these channels that just blow up, you know. Like I put some pretty good content out there. I'm a little rough around the edges, I'll admit it, but I'm totally censored. I just released a documentary about exposing new networks, new pedophile networks that are connected to the place Jeffrey Epstein was connected to in northern Michigan, and it's gotten just a handful of views. The last two documentaries before that, they were up to about one of them was over 38,000 views, and it went to like 10,000 in just a couple of days. And this one is a better documentary than both of those put together. You know, it just blows my mind. I even show footage of inside Epstein's cabin that no one's even seen inside. You can't find any pictures online of it or nothing like that. And I was able to get inside the cabin and show people that there's a secret room in the basement that Jeffrey Epstein had. And you'd think that people would want to see it or share it. I'm kind of blown away. It hasn't taken more traction, but it's not about numbers for me. It's about the information. And I'm making another documentary, working towards one already as it is. So I'm not stopping. You know, whoever needs to see it will see it. And whoever does. Whoever doesn't. But I'm trying to be here to warn people today that this letter from the Postal Service given out 4 days ago is a definite warning sign that something massive is brewing right now. All right. And I hope people are paying attention, because when the feds are warning their federal workers that a lockdown is coming and saying, keep this paper, they send out the paper, they say, keep the paper, it's proof, and make sure you have your ID badge. Okay. That's, I mean, come on, you know, like, come on, we're not stupid here. All right. The people that watch my channel, very intelligent people. Okay. And we can see between the lines and read between the lines. There's something brewing. Okay. So I'm here to give everybody a heads up. I pray that everybody listens. All right. Take it seriously. If you need to email me. I don't care if I get 100 emails. I'll just copy and paste the answer. If you get a generic answer, it's because I'm getting a bunch of emails. But I will give you what you can take to combat all this sickness stuff that's going on. All right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm being sabotaged. And you know, I was talking to Kathy O'Brien, victim of MK Ultra and Project Monarch. Wonderful lady. And I was saying, I'm just kind of blown away that it's being censored so badly. And she told me, she said, Josh, when you're over the target, you get censored. When you're over the target, you get censored. And you know, she's right. And this channel, I mean, it has been at 11,000 for so long. It bobs up, it bobs down. It bobs up, it's bobbed down. It actually is comical to me. And I know a lot of it is YouTube unsubscribing people. They say, well, I mean, let's take a few off the top because we don't want him to get any bigger, because then he's going to get out in the algorithm and he's going to notify more people what's actually going on. And we can't have that now, can we? So, I accept it. I accept my fate. One day they'll splatter me on the wall, especially if there's a lockdown. They'll come and they'll splatter me on the wall. Whatever. I don't care. Let it happen as it may. But I care about God's people, and I care about them enough to warn them. All right, to say, hey, look, heads up. And I love you guys. And just remember Psalms 91. Pray Psalms 9. Actually, let's read it together. Let's read it together because it's an important scripture. Okay, hold on 1 second here. All right, I'm going to share this with you guys here. Hold on 1 second. Let's read this together. Psalms 91 in the King James Version says, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him will I trust. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. I always consider this a pandemic scripture, okay? Because he's going to deliver you from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid. Listen, people, thou shalt not be afraid. Fear shouldn't be ingrained into you. Give it over to Jesus right now. Put it at the foot of his cross, and he will take care of you. God is mighty. God is able. If he was able to create the heavens and the universe, he can take care of you. It says here in verse 5, thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor the missiles or the directed energy weapons or the bullets or whatever that flieth by day. All right, don't be afraid of any of this stuff. All right, verse 6, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness. So all of this superflu stuff, don't be afraid of it. Nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. It means it won't come near you, people. It won't come near you. Only with your eyes, only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. All right, right there. All right, God's allowing these things to happen because the wicked are being punished, but it is not going to come near you. 1,000 will fall here, 10,000 will fall there, but it is not coming near you. It ain't coming near your home. All right, it says in verse 9, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague, all right, even the superflu, COVID-19, whatever, all right, whatever comes, it shall not come nigh thy dwelling. That's a promise of God. If you lean into him, and it says, he that dwelleth in the secret place at the very top, it says right here, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. That means being in the presence of God, spending time with Jesus, singing to Jesus, praying and seeking his face. All right, this is the promise. If you do this, all right, he's not even going to let a plague come nigh thy dwelling. It says in verse 11, for he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. When you go to work, when you go to the store, when you go to school, it don't matter. He is going to give his angels charge over you. In verse 12, it says, they shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. They're going to bear you up. You ain't going to trip. You ain't going to fall. You ain't going to trip over a stone. God is going to pick you up, and he's going to set you on solid ground. They don't call him the Rock of Ages for nothing. All right, he is the unshakable foundation, and anybody who stands on him will be safe. And that is a promise of God, because it says right on the top, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High. That's that holy of holies. That's that communion with God. That's that seeking his face out and praying and loving on him in private, not just in the open, not just on Sundays when you go to church. Get in that prayer closet and seek God's face out. It says in verse 13 here, thou shalt tread upon the lion and the adder, which is like a viper, a snake. The young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. because he hath set his love upon me. All right, therefore, and this is God speaking here, because you have set your love upon him, therefore will he deliver you and will set you on high, because you hath known his name. All right, I'm applying that scripture to you. All right, let's read it again. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will he deliver you and will set you on high, because you hath known his name. All right, you shall call upon him, and he will answer you, and will be with you in trouble, and will deliver you and honor you. With long life will he satisfy you and show you his salvation. How about them apples right there? How about them apples right there? I don't know about you, but I'm going to lean on the promises of God and what's coming. I'm not going to be scared. I'm not going to worry. In fact, I'm not going to just survive. I'm going to thrive in what's happening right now. I am going to allow God to pick me up and carry me through this. They ain't going to scare me. They don't shiver my timbers. And I suggest that you guys get in line with me, because I'm telling you what, we have a mighty king that we serve. And if greater is he that is within you than he that is within the world. All right. If God is for you, who can be against you? May God bless you all. May he keep you in this time frame. And don't forget to go out and change this world in which you live.
Yeah.